What if I told you that one person, working essentially alone from their bedroom, could create a game that would dethrone some of the biggest studios in the world? What if I told you this same person built more hype than AAA marketing campaigns with budgets in the millions? And what if I told you that by April 2024, this mysterious developer had achieved something that most game studios could only dream of? This is the full story of Manor, a medieval strategy game that became the most wishlisted game on Steam, selling over 2 million copies within its first weeks and caught the entire gaming industry in a masterclass of organic marketing. But this isn't just another indie success story. This is a lesson in how authentic passion, smart timing, and understanding your audience can create a hype machine that money simply can't buy. Our story begins with a grand plan of world domination, but with a simple desire to create the perfect medieval city builder. Gregorez Staggering wasn't an industry veteran or a marketing genius. He was just a passionate gamer who took a look at the strategy game landscape and thought, I can do better. The name Slavic magic, which Staggering later started calling themselves, tells us something about the approach. It wasn't chosen through focus groups or marketing committees. According to interviews, the studio name actually comes from a Witcher 3 meme, a joke about Slavic developers creating magical gaming experiences. Right from the beginning, this is a sense of authenticity and humor that would become central to the appeal of Manor. In the early years, the development was funded through small donations on Patreon. This wasn't a venture capital or a publisher funding. This was pure grassroots support from people who believed in this vision. Staggering was essentially crowdfunding his dream, one patron at a time, building a community around a game that didn't even exist yet. The game's core concept was ambitious but focused, combining the organic city building of games like Banished with the tactical combat of Total War, all set in a beautifully realized medieval world. But here's what made it different. Slavic Magic wasn't trying to be everything to everyone. He had a clear vision of what he wanted and he stuck to it. Using Unreal Engine 4, Slavic Magic began crafting something that looked and felt different from other strategy games. The graphics were gorgeous, the buildings had weight and authenticity, and the screenshots looked like a painting of medieval life. But what he was really building without realizing was anticipation. Here's where the story gets interesting. Most indie games try and make a splash very quickly. They announce, build hype, and release, then hope for the best. Staggering took a completely different approach though. He built hype the way that medieval towns actually grew, organically, slowly, but with incredible strength and foundations. The first major milestone came in July of 2020 with the announcement trailer. This wasn't just any trailer. It was a carefully crafted piece of marketing that went kind of viral in strategy gaming. Players immediately started comparing it to beloved classics like Banished, Stronghold, and Total War, but more importantly, they were just talking about it. The trailer achieved something that most marketing campaigns really struggle with. It made people feel something. Watching those medieval villages go about their daily lives, seeing the seasons change, watching armies clash in epic battles, it tapped into something primal that strategy gamers have been craving, setting an initial goal that seemed almost quaint now. 14,000 wishlists on Steam. That was Manor's measure of success at the time. Slavic Magic wasn't thinking about millions of sales or becoming the next big thing. He just wanted to know if people were even interested. But then something magical happened. The wishlists didn't just hit 14,000, they kept climbing. 50,000, 100,000, 500,000. Each milestone brought more attention, more discussions, more people discovering this mysterious solo developer and his ambitious work. The key here was Staggering's approach to communication. He wasn't bombarding people with marketing speak or overpromising features. His updates were genuine, showing real progress, acknowledging challenges and maintaining an authentic voice that had attracted people in the first place. So by 2021, the project received validation from an unexpected source. Epic Games awarded Slavic Magic a grant through their Epic Mega Grants program. This wasn't just money, it was recognition from one of the biggest names in gaming that Manor was something special. The grant allowed Staggering to focus full-time on development without worrying about paying bills. It could also bring on other people to help. By 2022 and 2023, something kind of unprecedented happened. Manor had become more than just a game people wanted to play. It had become almost an indie phenomenon in the strategy gaming community. People weren't just wishlisting it, they were creating fan art, writing speculative articles, and building entire communities around a game that didn't even exist yet. And this is where we see the genius of Slavic Magic's approach. Whether intentional or not, but by taking their time, by not rushing to market, they allowed players to build the hype for them. Every development update became an event. Every screenshot was analyzed and discussed. The scarcity created desire. Content creators began making videos about Manor before it was even playable. Think about that for a moment. People were making content about a game based purely on screenshots and development updates. That's not just marketing, that's a movement. The strategy gaming community is particularly prone to this kind of anticipation because we're used to waiting. There are players that have been burned by rushed releases and unfinished games, so when they saw Manor was taking its time, being transparent about challenges and clearly passionate about the craft, they didn't just support him, they became evangelists. By January of 2024, the impossible had happened. Manor had been wishlisted over 2 million times, overtaking the highly anticipated title Hades 2. I mean, think about that competition. Hades 2, the sequel to one of the most beloved indie games of all time, from Supergiant Games, a proven studio with massive resources, and they were being beaten by a solo developer from Poland working on his first major game. This was about what those numbers represented: genuine excitement, authentic anticipation, and a community that had invested emotionally in seeing this project succeed. And here's where Staggering made perhaps the smartest decision for Manor, though it must not have felt that smart at the time. The game was originally planned for release in late 2023. Everything was building towards that moment. The community was ready, the wish lists were climbing, and the pressure was enormous. Yet instead of rushing to meet the deadlines, Slavic made the decision that separates good developers from great ones, delaying the game to April 2024. And in the words of the new publisher Hooded Horse, this was to allow for additional work, even though the game was already a fun experience in October 2022. This decision flies in the face of conventional wisdom, though. In the gaming industry, momentum is everything. When you have hype, you capitalize on it immediately. But Staggering understood something that many developers miss. His community wasn't going anywhere. They'd invested emotionally within this project, and they wanted it to succeed more than they wanted it immediately. The delay actually increased anticipation rather than diminishing it. Each month that passed, more people discovered this game. Wishlist counts continued climbing. The community continued growing. By pushing back the release, Staggering turned anticipation into sustained marketing growth. What's remarkable is how the community reacted to the delay. Instead of anger or disappointment, there was understanding and support. Well, this pretty much tells us everything about the relationship that Slavic had built. They trusted it because it had been transparent and honest, and clearly passionate about the project. This level of community trust is something that money can't buy. Traditional marketing can't manufacture, and only consistent authenticity can earn. And it comes from authentic communication, consistent delivery on promises, and a genuine respect for your audience's intelligence. By early 2024, several factors had aligned to create the perfect environment for Manor's success. The strategy game community was hungry for innovation. City builders had become stagnant, and the most recent releases felt like rehashes of new formulas. AAA strategy games were either overly complex or dumbed down for mass appeal. In this landscape came Manor with its promise of something different: gridless building, seasonal gameplay, realistic medieval economics, and battles that both felt strategic and visceral. But more than that, it represented something that had become rare in gaming: a passion project that wasn't compromised by corporate interfering. The final months before release saw several viral marketing moments: screenshots of the game's beautiful seasonal changes spreading across social media, videos of the construction system, where buildings actually grew piece by piece like real medieval construction, captivating the audience. The combat footage showing hundreds of soldiers clashing in realistic formations had strategy gamers salivating. Each of these moments felt organic because they were. Slavic wasn't pushing content through marketing algorithms, he was sharing his genuine excitement about features he spent years perfecting, and this showed, because by March of 2024, Manor had achieved something that seemed, at least at the start, impossible. It became the most wishlisted game on Steam, with over 3 million people waiting for its release. To put this into perspective, it had more wishlists than sequels to beloved franchises, more than games backed by major publishers, and more than titles with multi-million-dollar marketing budgets. This wasn't just a success, it was a phenomenon that defied everything the gaming industry thought it knew about marketing and hype generation. Then launch day came around. On April the 26th, 2024, after years of building anticipation, Manor finally released into early access. What happened next was unprecedented for an indie game. Within hours, the game had surpassed 150,000 concurrent players on Steam. By the end of its first day, it had peaked over 173,000 concurrent players. To understand how remarkable this is, consider that many AAA games never reached these numbers. This was a solo developer's first major game, and it was competing with billion-dollar franchises. The sales numbers were equally staggering. Manor sold 2 million copies on its first few weeks, numbers that would make established studios jealous, but perhaps more importantly, it maintained a very positive rating on Steam with over 90% reviews on players. This wasn't just initial curiosity or hype purchasing. People were actually enjoying the game despite it being in early access with fairly limited content. And that's the difference between manufactured hype and genuine excitement. When players get their hands on a product, it delivers on its promises. The launch also created content creation explosions as well. Twitch streams streamers and YouTube content creators flocked to the game, not because they were paid to promote it, but because their audiences were demanding it. The game generated hundreds of thousands of hours of content in its first month, all essentially free marketing driven by genuine enthusiasm. The success was so dramatic that it caught even industry veterans off guard. Here was proof that in an age of massive marketing budgets and corporate gaming, there was still room for authenticity to win. So, what exactly made Manor's hype so effective? Let's break down some of the elements that created the perfect storm of anticipation. First of all, authenticity. While AAA studios focus on perfect, sterile marketing materials, Slavic Magic showed genuine development journeys, updates that felt like conversations with a friend, not corporate communications. When he showed a feature, it was because he was excited about it, not because a marketing calendar said it was time. Then there's scarcity. By not flooding the market with content, every piece of Manor media felt special. Every screenshot became a new piece of analysis. A development update was a celebration, and this scarcity made each piece of content more valuable for that fact. Then there was a community investment. Off the back of this scarcity, Patreon supporters weren't just funding development, they were emotionally invested in this project's success. They became the game's first evangelists, spreading the words organically to their gamer communities. This created a snowball effect where passion bred more passion. Then there's visual storytelling. Each piece of Manor's media told a story. Screenshots weren't just showing off graphics, they were showing moments in medieval life. The construction of videos wasn't just demonstrating mechanics, they were showing the satisfaction of creation. And the battle footage wasn't just combat, it was epic storytelling. But perhaps most importantly, Staggering understood that the great hype isn't built overnight. He let the anticipation develop naturally, feeding it with regular updates but never overwhelming it with too much information. He understood that mystery and anticipation could be more powerful than total transparency. Of course, success at this level doesn't come without controversy. As Manor's exploded in popularity, questions began emerging about the solo developer marketing angle. Critics pointing out that while Staggering was indeed the primary developer, he had received help with certain aspects like art and assets and music. The controversy peaked when Arthur Bruno, CEO of Crate Entertainment, publicly questioned whether Slavic Magic deserved the solo developer title. This sparked heated debate in gaming communities about what constitutes as a solo developer and whether the marketing had been misleading. But Slavic Magic responded. He acknowledged that he'd received some outside help, but argued that he'd earned the solo developer title because, well, if I quit, it's game over. This response actually strengthened his position with the community because it's, well, honest, humble, and it showed that he wasn't trying to take credit where it wasn't due. The controversy, rather than damaging the game's reputation, actually increased awareness and sparked more discussions about indie development, solo creators, and the challenges that make games without major studio support. So, after all this, what can other developers and marketers learn from the Manor's phenomenon? The lessons here go far beyond gaming to apply to any creative endeavor that you're trying to build with authenticity and audience engagement. Well, authenticity for one beats polish. Staggering's rough around the edges communication style was more than effective than any polished marketing material, well, could have ever been. People crave for genuine human connection, especially in an era of corporate connection, so don't hide your passion behind professional facades. Then there's community building. Manor succeeded because Slavic Magic built a community before he completed the game. Those Patreon supporters and early followers weren't just customers, they were collaborators in the project's success. Investing in relationships is important, not just products. Then there's patience. In a world obsessed with speed and first-to-market advantages, Staggering proved that sometimes the best strategy is to wait. By delaying the release, he allowed anticipation to build to unprecedented levels, so don't rush the moment just because others are pressuring you to. Then we have every piece of Manor's content feeling special, and this is about scarcity. Modern marketing often makes mistakes of overwhelming audiences with content, but sometimes less really is more. And then there's visual storytelling. People didn't fall in love with Manor's because of its feature list, they fell in love with the stories those features enabled. Every screenshot told a medieval life. Every development video showed possibility. Focus on emotion, not just functionality. The Manor's phenomenon represents something larger than just one game's success. It's a proof of concept for a different way of approaching game development and marketing in a modern era. We're living in a time where traditional gaming media has less influence, where social algorithms can be unpredictable, and where customers are increasingly skeptical of corporate messaging. So in this environment, authenticity does become a superpower. Manor joins this growing list of indie games that have succeeded through authentic community building rather than traditional marketing. Games like Hades, Hollow Knight, and Stardew Valley. These games, there isn't a massive budget or perfect graphics, but developers who genuinely cared about their projects and communicated that passion effectively. The success also highlighted the power of PC gaming and its community, particularly on Steam. These players are willing to wait for quality, support developers they believe in, and spread the word about games they're excited about. They're not just customers, they're partners in this creative process. And the numbers just speak for themselves. 3 million wishlists, 2 million copies sold in the first few weeks, over 170,000 concurrent players at peak. These aren't just statistics, they represent millions of people who were excited excited about one person's vision, and they were willing to pay despite the early access tag. So, success brings its own challenges, and Manor's post-launch journey illustrates both of the benefits and burdens of all this hype. With the initial sales, they were incredible. Granted, player counts, though, did drop significantly as people experienced the limited early access content. This is kind of a double-edged sword that you're going to get with early access success. You get the sales, but also the pressure to deliver. Slavic Magic's response to post-launch criticism has still been consistent, transparent, and honest, focusing on long-term quality over short-term appeasement. He's continued to regularly develop updates, addressing community concerns directly, and maintain his commitment to the original vision. The game's nomination for Best Debut Indie Game at the Game Awards of 2024 represents industry recognition of what the community already knew. Manor isn't just a successful game, it's a significant achievement in independent game development. Looking at the development roadmap, it's clear that Slavic Magic understands that this is just the beginning. The success of Manor hasn't changed his fundamental approach. Carefully considered development focused on creating the best possible experience rather than chasing trends and capitalizing on hype. The Manor phenomenon has already influenced how other indie developers approach marketing. We're seeing a lot more developers embrace longer development cycles, more authentic communications, and focus on building genuine communities rather than just customer bases. Publishers has taken notice too. Hooded Horse, Manor's publisher, have become an advocate for the quality over speed approach, supporting other developers who want to take the time to create exceptional experiences. Steam has highlighted the game as an example of how early access can work when done thoughtfully. The success spawned academic analysis and industry case studies examining how a solo developer achieved what massive studios struggle with even to this day. The lessons extend beyond gaming into broader discussions about authentic marketing, community building, and the power of patience in creative endeavors. Perhaps most importantly, impact is what Manor represents for inspiring game developers. It proves that you don't need a massive team, unlimited budget, or corporate backing to create something extraordinary. You need a vision, persistence, and the ability to create authenticity with people who share your passion. Manor isn't just a successful game, it's a masterclass in how to build sustainable hype in the modern era. The game's continued success after launch proved that the hype wasn't just empty excitement. It was based on genuine quality and vision. Players are still engaged, the community is still growing, and Slavic Magic is still developing with the same passion that started this whole journey. In an industry often criticized by being driven over profit over passion, Manor reminds us why we fell in love with gaming in the first place. It's proof that great games can come from ideas executed with care, not from focus groups and market research. The Manor phenomenon really has taught us that in our hyper-connected, over-marketed world, authenticity has still become the ultimate differentiator. People can spot manufactured hype from miles away, but they'll move mountains to support something that they believe in. So the next time you're working on a creative project, remember the lessons of Manor. Focus on building genuine connection with people who share your vision.